And you are watching GVTV News.
Thanks, Renette. And I'm Randy Hansen. In World News headlines today, 70 arrested in raid on Occupy San Francisco. And judge clears way for Occupy Boston removal. And dozens arrested protesting lobbyists in D.C. And prosecutors drop death penalty case against Mumia Abu-Jamal. And White House overrules FDA on Plan B. And Obama rejects linking Keystone to payroll tax cuts. And the EU leaders gather to Eurozone summit. And Assad says only a crazy person would kill his own people. Gorbachev calls for a new vote as Russia protests grow. And U.S. ambassadors to Belgium links anti-Semitism to Israel policies. And girl shot by mother in welfare office dies. And Sandusky re-arrested on new child sexual abuse charges. And Blagojevich sentenced to 14-year term. And Verizon fires 40 workers for labor strike. An appeals court upholds Muslim charity convictions. And a correction from yesterday, Mexican activists survived the attack. GVTV News content has no connection with NCTV Digital Media Center and is its own program. But before these stories, GVTV News would like to thank one of our underwriters who support your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us, GVTV News. In today's first world news story, police in San Francisco have arrested 70 people in an early morning raid on the 2-month-old Occupy San Francisco protest encampment. Witnesses say police in riot gear arrived at approximately 1:30 in the morning and gave protesters a 5-minute warning to vacate the area. They then tore down the approximately 140 tents, destroying the camp and throwing the protesters' belongings in the back of a garbage truck. In Boston, a judge has lifted a temporary restraining order that prevented the city from evicting protesters without court approval. City officials claim they have no immediate plans to clear the protesters, but Boston Fire Marshal has testified the encampment has numerous serious fire hazards and says he fears for the protesters' safety. And more than 70 people were arrested when Occupy protesters blocked intersections and snarled traffic in the heart of the nation's lobbying industry in Washington, D.C. Demonstrators formed human chains across the street and protested in front of the lobbying firm founded by a former chief of staff in the Clinton administration. Protesters have swarmed Capitol Hill this week in an action to demand jobs and restructuring of the nation's economic system. One protester said, "I think that they are demonstrating democracy in action. This is democracy." Another protester said, "I think they're heroes. I think their rights are being squashed. Obviously, they're in the middle of the road, given. But that being said, this is a true American protest. These people are heroes. They're standing up for American rights. They're standing up. They're all types of people. We have veterans in there. We have all types of races, all types of religions." Philadelphia prosecutors have announced they will no longer seek the death penalty for the imprisoned journalist and former Black Panther Mumia Abu-Jamal For decades, Abu Jamal has argued racism by the trial judge and prosecutors led to his 1982 conviction of killing Philadelphia police officer Daniel Faulkner. 2 years ago, the Third U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals agreed with a lower judge who set aside Abu Jamal's death sentence after finding jurors were given confusing instructions and encouraged them to choose death rather than a life sentence. The U.S. Supreme Court then ordered the court to re-examine the decision. In April, the ruling was upheld. Prosecutors had to determine whether Abu Jamal would get a new sentencing hearing in court before the new jury. On Wednesday, Philadelphia prosecutor Seth Williams said he opted for a life sentence rather than face more lengthy appeals. The White House has overruled the Food and Drug Administration proposal to make emergency contraceptives available over the counter, including to young teenagers. The FDA had concluded it is safe to sell the Plan B one-step pill without a prescription to women of all ages. But on Wednesday, Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius publicly overruled the FDA, the first time ever a health secretary has done so. The decision means young women below the age of 17 will still need a prescription in order to purchase Plan B. In a statement, the National Organization for Women called the decision a stunning betrayal of women, adding, "We call on the president to stop playing politics with the lives of women and girls. During the Bush years, women's reproductive health was under constant attack. We don't need more of the same from the Obama administration." President Obama has dismissed a Republican attempt to link passage of a Social Security payroll tax cut to support for the proposed Keystone XL oil pipeline. Republican leaders have suggested they could back the tax cut in return for Obama's immediate approval of Keystone, instead of delaying a decision until next year. At a news conference with Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper, Obama rejected drawing a link between the tax cut and Keystone. President Obama said, "Any effort to try to tie Keystone to the payroll tax cut, I will reject. So everybody should be on notice. And the reason is because the payroll tax cut is something that House Republicans, as well as Senate Republicans, should want to do regardless of any other issues." European leaders are gathered in Brussels for a key summit billed as the last-ditch effort to save the Eurozone amidst a crippling debt crisis. France and Germany are pushing for treaty changes, including tighter controls of European Union members' sovereign debts. The White House has played a key role in the lead-up to the summit, with Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner leading a team of U.S. officials in Europe to meet with leaders throughout the week. There goes Europe. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad has attempted to distance himself from the violence his forces have committed against the Syrian people in their uprising against his regime. In an interview with ABC News, Assad said he did not give his forces a command to kill or be brutal. Assad went on to add, "They are military forces who belong to the government. I don't own them. I'm president. No government in the world kills its people unless it's led by a crazy person." The United Nations estimates Assad's troops have been responsible for the death of more than 4,000 people and committed gross human rights abuses, including torture, targeting of journalists, and the killing of children. In Washington, State Department spokesperson Mark Toner criticized Assad. And he said, "It either says that he's completely lost any power that he had within Syria, that he's simply a tool, or that he's completely disconnected with reality. It's hard for us to say, but you know, what we insist is that he has lost all credibility in the eyes of his people and needs to step down." And here's a surprise. Former Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev has called on Russian authorities to annul the nation's parliamentary votes and hold a new election. Speaking to Interfax news agency, Gorbachev said, "More and more people are starting to believe the election results are not fair. I believe that ignoring public opinion discredits the authorities and destabilizes the situation. Unrest over the election has prompted thousands of people to gather and protest in Moscow and St. Petersburg over the last 2 days. Vladimir Putin's United Russian Party won less than 50% of the vote in the disputed election. International monitors and opposition groups have said the contest was marred with rigging that included ballot box stuffing and false voter rolls." The Obama administration is facing calls from Republicans and supporters of the Israeli government to fire its ambassador to Belgium for comments linking anti-Semitism in Europe to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. In a recent speech, Ambassador Howard Gutman, shown here, drew a distinction between the older endemic form of anti-Jewish bias versus the newer form of springing from anger over Israel's treatment of Palestinians. And he said, it's a tension and perhaps even a hatred largely born of and reflecting the tension between Israel, the Palestinian territories, and neighboring Arab states in the Middle East over the continuing Israeli-Palestinian problem. It is far different than the first form. It's far different than the anti-Semitism traditionally associated with the hating groups, those who would hate Jews and Muslims and gays. Republican presidential hopefuls Mitt Romney and Newt Gingrich have called for Gutman's ouster, although the White House has distanced itself from Gutman's remarks. It says it has no plans to let him go. A 12-year-old girl who was shot by her mother along with her younger brother in Texas welfare office has died. The girl, Rami Grimmer, died on Wednesday, 2 days after being critically wounded in a standoff between her mother and police. The mother, Rachel Grimmer, killed herself and shot her 2 children after being denied food stamps. Relatives say she was mentally unstable. Hours before her shooting, Rami had updated her Facebook page to read, "May die today." Her younger brother remains in critical condition. The former Penn State assistant football coach, Jerry Sandusky, was arrested for a second time on Wednesday after 2 new accusers came forward to allege he sexually abused them when they were children. Sandusky already faces more than 40 counts of child sexual abuse involving 8 victims. And former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich has been sentenced to 14 years in federal prison for corruption conviction that involved 17 different charges, including trying to sell or trade President Obama's old U.S. Senate seat and attempting to shake down executives for campaign cash. Blagojevich was impeached in 2009 and found guilty earlier this year. The telecom giant Verizon has fired 40 workers over their involvement in the 15-day strike earlier this year. Some 45,000 Verizon workers took part over cuts of wages and benefits. The fired employees have received letters saying they violated the company's code of conduct while protesting during the strike, including committing acts of violence. The workers' unions, the Communications Workers of America, and International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers say they will challenge the dismissals in court. An appeals court has upheld the conviction of 5 former top officials with the Holy Land Foundation, once the nation's largest Muslim charity. The 5 were convicted on charges of supporting the Palestinian group Hamas, though they were never accused of supporting violence, instead for funding charities that aided needy Palestinians. The State Department had also funded the same groups. The government case relied on Israeli intelligence, as well as disputed documents and electronic surveillance gathered by the FBI over a span of 15 years. First trial ended in a hung jury, but prosecutors obtained convictions in the retrial the following year. Defense attorneys say they expect to file a new appeal that will eventually reach the U.S. Supreme Court. Corrections to a headline from yesterday's news. News report that stated the Mexican women's rights activist Norma Andrade had died after being shot 5 times last week. In fact, Andrade survived the shooting and has just been released from the hospital. She's now back with her family under 24-hour protection. Sorry about the mistake. And that's it for World News Today. Now, another thanks to one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That's right, it's us, GVTV News.
Soundcheck Music Center, the Rock and Roll Connection. We have guitars, amps, drum equipment, sound accessories, lessons, and repairs. We are located at 671 Maltman Drive, Grass Valley. 530-272-7236, open 7 days a week.
Something happening here, but what it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware.
That's right, it's time for the police blotter. Pictures in the blotter, not from these actual events, but used for visual aid only. Grass Valley Police Department on Tuesday. 12:01 p.m., a caller from Winchester and Buena Vista Streets reported high school kids smoking marijuana who were gone when officers arrived. And 12:44 p.m., caller from 300 block of Railroad Avenue reported $250 was missing from a vehicle. 1:44 p.m., caller from Highway 49 and McKnight Way reported a wrong-way driver who could not be located. 2:40 p.m., caller from 800 block of Seton Way reported a person smoking marijuana outside a motorhome that had shirtless kids inside it. Person was not smoking marijuana and the kids were okay. And 3:09 p.m., caller from Neal Street reported 2 men and a woman passing around a drug pipe, then called back to report 8 boys smoking marijuana. The park was closed for the day. And 3:51 p.m., caller from 100 block of Ophir Street reported identity theft. And 5:22 p.m., caller from South Church Street reported a man looking in vehicles. No crime was found to have occurred. And 5:50 p.m., caller from 800 block of Sutton Way reported a dogfight in a motorhome. Looks like tuckered him out. 6:36 p.m., a woman from 300 block of Madrone Way reported being assaulted by a woman who was arrested on suspicion of grand theft and battery. And 8:51 p.m., caller from 300 block of Chapel Street reported a vehicle hit a pedestrian. Driver ran over their own foot and was taken to the hospital. 10:13 p.m., caller from 100 block of South School Street reported a fight that might be physical with yelling and pushing. No physical fight was found to have occurred. And Wednesday, 1:25 a.m., a caller from 300 block of Pleasant Street reported a fight that had been going on all day with the people now throwing things. Nevada County Sheriff's Office on Tuesday, 8:35 a.m., a caller from 16,000 block of Delmar Way reported theft of various items, including an antique watch. 11:34 a.m., a caller from Highway 49 reported 2 runaway juveniles. At 6:05 p.m., it was reported they had returned. And 1:27 p.m., caller from 11,000 block of Orion Way reported a house had been entered and gone through with numerous items stolen. And 3:17 p.m., caller from 10,000 block of School Street reported a possible assault. A man was arrested on warrants. And 4:54 p.m., a caller from Gold Hill Drive reported 2 people in a vehicle smoking marijuana. They were found to be smoking cigarettes. Much more dangerous. 7:33 p.m., a man from 16,000 block of Cooper Road reported a woman stole his cat and threatened him. It was found to have been friends playing a trick. 9:17 p.m., a caller from 11,000 block of Buckeye Road reported a man was drunk and causing a disturbance. 9:43 p.m., a caller reported he was threatened to kill the neighbors, but he could not be located. Nevada City Police Department on Tuesday. 10:20 p.m., caller from 300 block of Alexander Street reported a woman refused to pay for a cab. She was arrested on suspicion of defrauding an innkeeper and violating probation. And that's it for the blotter today. Now another thanks to one of our underwriters who supports your only visual video news media in Nevada County. That is right. It is us. GVTV News. In today's local news headlines, DeMatteis attorney slams the district attorney's office. And South Yuba River Citizens League, Circle, co-hosts town hall meeting to save state parks. In our first local story, written by Liz Keller of the Union, the attorney for the convicted child molester slammed Nevada County District Attorney Cliff Newell's decision to publicly out the victim and castigate the sentencing judge. Stephen Munkelt, the defense attorney for Robert DeMatteis, said Wednesday that Newell's press release regarding the case was calculated to strip the victim of both privacy and dignity and was motivated by purely political or personal reasons. DeMatteis, 63 years of age, of Nevada City, had pleaded guilty to one count of sexual abuse of a minor younger than 14 and one count of possession of child pornography. Nevada County Superior Court Judge Candace Heidelberger sentenced him to 6 years, but suspended the sentence, granting him 5 years supervised probation. DeMatteis will serve 1 year in county jail and can apply for alternative sentencing after he serves half of that time. DeMatteis also must complete a treatment program and register as a sex offender. Other terms include no contact with his victim and no access or possession of pornography. After DeMatteis' sentencing, Newell issued a statement that detailed DeMatteis' relationship to the victim as well as graphic details of the crime. The court had the opportunity to do the right thing, Newell said in the prepared statement. The court chose to give a child molester probation. Prosecutor Katie Francis also came under fire from Munkelt for calling Heidelberger's decision unconscionable. Munkelt said both Francis and Newell violated the professional rules of conduct by undermining respect for the court and by making extrajudicial comments that have substantially likelihood of heightening public condemnation of the accused. I fully understand Mr. Munkelt's emotional diatribe, however you say it, but certainly do not agree with his position, Newell responded. Everything we said on the press release was also said in open court, on the record, and in front of victims. At all times, this office has considered the victims' wishes as they were mandated to, as Mr. Munkelt points out. However, the law requires more than just following a victim's wishes in dealing with the case. Newell continued, I stand firmly behind everything that my office has done and said in this case. Bottom line is that these are very emotional cases for everyone involved, court personnel, law enforcement, attorneys, and judges alike. None of us enjoy these cases, but for the community's safety, they need to be dealt with aggressively by the district attorney's office. A grassroots effort to save 2 local state parks kicked off with a major town hall meeting. It will be this next Monday night. Nevada City, co-sponsored by South Yuba River Citizens League, or Circle. Several hundred community members are expected to attend the meeting to learn how they can take action to remove the South Yuba River and the Malakoff-Diggins state parks from the list of state parks now slated to close July 1st, 2012. We will not stand by and allow these treasured parks to be abandoned by the state, said Khalid Dardik, Circle's executive director. Circle is co-sponsoring this town hall to rally park supporters to take action. Write the governor and ask your state and county elected representatives to make saving the parks a priority. Years ago, the community rallied behind Circle's motto that people can save a river and won wild and scenic protection for the South Yuba River. Today we'll show how, by working together, people can save the parks. Circle and his colleagues from the South Yuba River and Malakoff-Diggins Parks associations are very concerned about how the closure plan might impact the community. To date, the State Park Department staff hasn't revealed how they plan to close the 20-mile park or protect the historic Bridgeport Bridge and Malakoff-Diggins. Over 350,000 people visited the South Yuba River State Park in 2010. If the current proposal for closing the state park is not corrected, many of these people will visit the park to find the park's visitor center and toilets closed, tours eliminated, and most concerning of all, no park rangers to manage law enforcement needs, emergency medical help, and wildland fire problems, said Dave Anderson, the president of the South Yuba River Park Association, or SERPA. The 2 local state parks are a vital part of our history and our community. They contain irreplaceable resources that would be endangered by fire, vandalism, and theft. The beauty and recreational value of the river may be severely diminished. SERPA is continuing to do all we can to support the local park rangers to find ways to help these areas safe be safe and open to park visitors. Local park supporters are heartened by the news that the grassroots effort succeeded in moving Mono Lake Tuffa State National Reserves off California's 70 park closure list. Organizers at Circle are hoping to replicate the effort in Nevada County with a full-scale letter-writing campaign to Governor Brown and visits to the state capitol. Elementary school students from Grass Valley Charter School have secured meetings with the Resource Secretary John Laird and representatives for Assemblyman Dan Logue and Senator Ted Gaines Monday morning prior to the town hall meeting that evening. Elizabeth Goldstein, president of the California State Parks Association, will join the panel discussion to provide a statewide perspective on efforts to save state parks. Closing California state parks is bad for business, and many communities would be greatly affected by park closures, said Goldstein. State park staff estimates that more than 350,000 people visit South Yuba River State Park annually, for example, which in turn generates millions of dollars to support local businesses. About the South Yuba River Citizens League, Circle and the South Yuba River State Park throughout the 1990s, Circle worked to secure both formal designations of the South Yuba River as a state park, as well as wild and scenic protection of the river, a designation that would protect the river from dam proposals. With the support of hundreds of local businesses and thousands of residents, the California State Parks Commissions unanimously voted to add the South Yuba State River to the state park system in September 30th, 1997. Since then, the State Department of Parks and Recreation has managed and protected those resources, which include the historic Bridgeport Covered Bridge, the Independence Trail, the first wheelchair-accessible trail in the United States, more than 80 miles of hiking trails, unsurpassed whitewater, kayaking and boating, fly fishing and bird watching, gold panning, and the beautiful natural beaches that span its entire stretch. In 1999, Circle was successful in securing protection for the South Yuba River under the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act for 39 miles of the river. In passing this landmark legislation, Circle had amassed support from dozens of agencies, hundreds of businesses, and thousands of Californians. And we'll be there. We'll be filming it. NCTV will be filming it, and we'll put that on the air for you. And that's it for local news today. GVTV News would like to thank Associated Press, Reuters, Amy Goodman, the Union, others for the sourcing of the news, and you for watching. Don't forget, we broadcast 3 times a day on public access NCTV, Comcast Cable Channel 11, and Suddenlinks Channel 16, and Truckee and Altamira, 8 a.m., 3 p.m., 7:30 p.m., Monday through Friday. And talk to you Monday. Have a good weekend. Next up is Sergio Espatilla, age 40, aka Armando Espatilla, or Sergio Bravo, wanted for murder, felony, no bail. Christopher Keith Besant, age 29, Nevada, burglary, grand theft, felony, no bail. And Charlene Jillian Hill, age 33, out of Nevada, drugs, violation, probation, felony, $25,000. Preston Robert Ryan, age 21, Grass Valley, possession of controlled substance and felony, no bail. And Justin Lee Nurse, age 23, Grass Valley, driving on a suspended license, vehicle registration compliance misdemeanor, $2,500 bail. And Michael Ray Melton, age 21, Seligman, Arizona, possession of stolen property, burglary, and felony, no bail. And Gordon Morgan Hewson, age 55, Olympic Valley, a DUI, fourth conviction in 10 years, revoked license, and then felony, $115,000 bail. And Richard Dean Jaffarian, age 21, out of Truckee, violation, probation, felony, no bail. And Cecil Cunningham, a.k.a. Morgan, or Gary Morgan, I don't know, age 56, whereabouts unknown, possibly L.A., possible drugs for sale, conspire to commit crime, resist arrest, felony, $30,000 bail. And Tara Serene Davis, age 32, whereabouts unknown, possession of controlled substance under the influence, controlled substance, felony, $10,000 bail. And Sarah Ann Schneider, age 20, Auburn, Sacramento, stolen property, failed to comply with court order, felony, no bail. And Christopher Joel Argento, age 21, Grass Valley, numerous drug offenses, DUI, hit and run, violation, probation, 3 misdemeanors, $12,500.